Hi everyone, I'm Vladimir Duthier. You've been watching CBSN On Assignment. This is After the Assignment. Iraq is where we begin tonight, in the nation's second largest city, Mosul. Iraqi forces are now in full control of that city, and victory has been declared over ISIS. In the waning days of the battle, Charlie D'Agata headed into the heart of the beleaguered city.
The destruction in the old city is everywhere you look. Not a building was left standing. They've just been leveled. This is what it costs to get rid of ISIS. Just looks like Armageddon. Almost every single building in these neighborhoods has been flattened. It's just annihilated. I mean, annihilated. It's, of all the years that I've been covering conflicts in Iraq, I've never seen the level of destruction I've seen here in Mosul. I mean, you look around and there's just nothing left.
Although ISIS fighters are gone, the mines and explosives they left behind still pose a major threat. But that's not the only danger that looms among the ruins. Thousands of children have been recruited by jihadists, taught to build bombs, work as spies, even execute prisoners. The cubs of the caliphate, as they're called, are meant to be the next generation of holy warriors. Charlie met some of these child soldiers, their families, and the people working to rehabilitate the radicalized.
I've been covering the fight against ISIS for years, pretty much ever since it began throughout Syria and Iraq, but never before have we been able to dig down that deep and really spend the time talking to the people who are affected most. I mean, the families, the kids. And what struck me, especially when we got into the old city in Mosul, was the level of destruction. I mean, as far as the eye could see, whole neighborhoods were just dropped and leveled. But then you remember that, you know, those are only structures, and those structures can be rebuilt. There are people inside those homes, people that have been displaced, people that have been enslaved by ISIS. People that had to live under ISIS, whether forcefully or whether they went willingly to the ISIS ideology. Then you had the others, the ones who had been kidnapped, the child soldiers, who were forced to fight for ISIS. Some that were forced to become suicide bombers. There were young people that we met, ISIS prisoners that we spoke to, who we got the impression that they sort of willingly signed up for that. Then there was another young boy, Zikran.
مثلا كان اللي يدرسونهم داعش يعني شيوخ.
We would believe everything they would say, but when it comes to the teacher would come in the class and ask who would wanna go and explode themselves, all of them are screaming, we wanted to, we wanted to.
He was separated from his family. His older brother he's never seen again. His father he's never seen again. He was only about 15 years old at the time. We asked him, why do you think they were so interested in him? It's because he was younger and his mind could be changed.
Were you willing to fight for ISIS?
We believed everything they said.
So he converted to Islam and he started to believe in the teachings that ISIS instructors and trainers were giving him.
They would tell us that either they became Muslims or they should be killed. Cutting someone's head with a sword is just ugly to see. Though they taught us at the religious school it's something very normal to do, but still seeing it, it was very ugly.
So I'm not entirely sure that this indoctrination that took place has come out. He hasn't had any professional therapy, which is needed. He hasn't had any counseling. He's just living on his own. He's got no job prospects. And the only thing that he really belonged to, and you can kind of see it in his eyes, were the pictures that he had when he's holding up those automatic weapons in the photos taken by ISIS, taken by friends.
That's you.
Yeah.
You look like an ISIS fighter.
So I truly believe that he believed in what he was doing. Yes, he was indoctrinated, but has that ideology come out? I'm not so sure. What struck me most though, and I'll never forget her, was Adiba, this Yazidi who 70 members of her friends and family, that inner circle, have disappeared.
And the thing I will never forget when my little brother told my mom that don't be sad and don't think of anything. I mean, at least we're gonna be killed together.
He must have been terrified.
And then I just escaped with my family before they arrived by 15 minutes.
She went back. She could have gone to Germany, where her family went. She went back specifically to help the young people and the mothers who were trapped. I don't know where she finds the strength, because day in and day out, she follows these stories and she tries to talk people, young people, into sort of coming to the right side.
My heart is broken, you know, since what happened to us. I mean, I lived my life. I left so many things behind. I just want to do something. I just want to work, I mean, and be with my people.
But in the end, you would have expected that somebody who had that sort of eternal optimism had some hope that it was going to get better. But she said no.
And we're not getting any help for those people. I mean, I don't know, I mean, people just like listening and just then they're forgetting about us.
I mean, I said, if you could, you know, wave a magic wand, what would be a solution? She said, just therapists, hundreds of therapists to help the young people. Well, they're just not getting it. They're stuck in camps, and they'll have to move on from this terrible destruction that is just on such a wholesale level. Not only will they never go home, but I don't think they'll ever be the same. These families have been ripped apart, and it's going to be a huge danger for the future.
I hope I will never get that moment that I will give up. Yeah. I hope I will never see that.
About 5,000 miles away from Iraq, in Japan, another crisis involving children is playing out. There aren't enough of them. The island nation is facing one of the largest population collapses in modern history. A demographic time bomb is how some economists are describing it. At the beginning of this year, Japan's population fell at its fastest pace since 1968, when comparable figures started being collected.
About 47.2% among married couples have no sexual intercourse over 1 month.
The school closed about 20 years or so ago, and across Japan, schools have been closing in large numbers because there simply aren't enough people, simply not enough kids to go to class anymore.
Well, aside from low fertility rates, Japan has long been reluctant to open up to immigration. And without immigrants or young Japanese people to take on jobs, machines may be the next best thing. But as Adam Yamaguchi discovered, many of these aren't just machines, they're actually human androids. And their goal, ironically, is to bring humanity back into people's lives.
It's very strange being in a room with Erica the robot. There were many times when I just sat back and had a conversation with this robot as if it were any other living human being. And I caught myself off guard so many times because, you know, when you talk to a human being, you're looking at a lot of nonverbal cues. They're fidgeting, they're twitching, they're making tiny, tiny movements. And it's those things that, that make these robots feel and look so realistic. And during the course of my conversation with her, I'd forget so many times that this was in fact a robot. The skin on these robots felt incredibly lifelike. I think they were made of some sort of a silicone, but incredibly realistic. The only dead giveaway was that the skin was cold. Erica told a number of jokes. These were pre-programmed jokes, and they were terrible jokes. And she would not stop. She just would not stop.
Why are robot engineers never lonely? Because they're always making new friends. How about another one?
Yeah, I remember one joke that Erica told towards the end was a little ominous.
How do you stop a robot from destroying you and the rest of human civilization?
I don't know.
You don't. How?
I mean, she was joking about it, but I think she was playing upon, I think, what a lot of people fear, especially in the US. Robots are seen as job killers. They're seen as replacements for people in factories, maybe driving vehicles in the future, and there's just there's a fear that, you know, they will take over, and the artificial intelligence that is advancing at such a rapid pace today may ultimately replace the need for humans in key roles. I went to visit a robot hotel, and while most of the customers today are going simply because it's funny and there's a little bit of a novelty to it, you get to see a T-Rex check you into your hotel room, but it's really not that far off. I remember one of the proprietors of the hotel saying that there are hoteliers from all over the world who've come to visit him in the last 6 months as they're trying to figure out how to introduce some of these robotics into their hotels. To me, what's so interesting about this story, of course the story is primarily about robots, but if you peel back a few of the layers, this actually reveals itself to be a story largely about immigration and about automation. Japan, as a matter of its own history, it's an island nation that's never been colonized, has no traditions or history with immigration. And so as the population declines, many in the world just say, well, why don't you just change your immigration policies and allow more foreigners to come in? Well, Japan doesn't have that experience. They don't know what it is to let other people from other countries come in. There's a fear of that naturally because they don't have that history. And so there are many Japanese people who say, we would rather have robots that are programmed to be like us, to understand our culture, than to allow immigrants in who don't know what it is to be Japanese. And I think that's what's so fascinating about the story. In many ways, Japan has always been primed to see robots being introduced and integrated into society in ways that we probably couldn't even imagine here in the US. And part of it has to do with the spirituality of the Japanese people. There's a term called animism. And what it means is that any objects, animate objects, inanimate objects, can have souls. So while we in America might see robots, however realistic they may look, as nothing but 2 pieces of silicone and steel and metal, in Japan, they can look at that same robot and see through it and say, this has a soul, because any objects in nature can have souls. And so the idea of interacting in a real way with these man-made machines isn't so unusual or strange to them. One of the things that I found really interesting was that Dr. Ishiguro really he turned the tables and asked me questions about what it is to be human. And he had posed the question, if you have somebody who's missing limbs and they have prosthetic limbs and robotic body parts, are they any less human? And I said, of course not.
Are they 100% humans or 80% humans or 70% humans? So give me your answer.
They're still human.
Okay, 100% humans.
Yeah.
That means that the fresh body is not a requirement to be humans. Okay, we don't care about the fresh bodies.
Right.
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 So even if they use the prosthetic and artificial arm and the legs and the brains and the heart and the organs, still we can accept that person as the humans.
Yeah.
So fresh body cannot distinguish human and others. Right. So no boundaries.
And that's a really interesting idea. This idea that humans and robotic arms and legs can be fused together and be one and the same. One of the things that I think you're going to start to see in the next coming decades is the fusion of those two technologies. Robots and humans kind of coming together and becoming these advanced cyborgs. I don't think that's that far off. There will be a day when these robots will be so advanced that they will be able to think and act autonomously. And I think we are now kind of at that crossroads where we need to figure out what role we want these robots to play in our lives.
Still ahead on After the Assignment, a case of stolen jobs here in the United States. And they're not being taken by robots. Inside, our investigation of a hidden workforce from Eastern Europe and the visa fraud that's getting foreign workers into American plants. We'll be right back.
When American workers have a level playing field, they cannot be beaten. They have not had a level playing field in a long time. Around the world, the maid in America label is the gold standard for craftsmanship, quality, and artistry. And that is one more reason why we have to protect it. I mean, we have to protect it.
Welcome back to After the Assignment. I'm Vladimir Duthier. Buy American and hire American remains a top priority for the Trump administration, especially when it comes to the auto industry. But before automakers can create jobs, they have to expand factories. And a CBS News investigation found much of that expansion is being done by foreign workers, mainly from Eastern Europe. Many are entering the United States on a non-immigrant visa for tourism and business known as a B1, B2. I spoke with Kathleen Karen, an expert on those visas. Kathleen is a founder and executive director of Justice in Motion, a nonprofit that pushes for transparency of non-immigrant visas. What is a B1 visa?
A B1 visa is a business visitor visa. So there's about 40,000 brought in each year. The biggest country of origin is Philippines, but it's often in combination with the B2 visa, which is a tourist visa. So the true numbers we do not know because there's about 7 million B1, B2 visas issued that are a combination of business visitors and tourist visas.
So you say that they're often issued in conjunction with the B2 visa. So you get one and you get the other.
Correct. So often business visitors will add some tourism to their trip, so it's a very common addition. But what it means is it obscures the true numbers of business visitors to the country every year.
What kind of work would you be allowed to do on this visa?
They're business-related activities. So, for example, you can be a trainer. You could be training U.S. workers. You could be supervising U.S. workers for a particular job. You can also be a skilled worker coming in to do a business transaction or execute a contract for your foreign company. But you're employed by the foreign company and you're paid in the wages from your foreign company.
So one of the things, Kathleen, that people are going to say, I think, when they see this report is American workers are losing out. These jobs can go to Americans, but they're going to these Eastern Europeans or other people that are coming in to work in these plants. What do you say to that?
Well, U.S. workers aren't given an opportunity to get those jobs. The reason is with the non-immigrant visas, there's only very few visas that require the companies to look for U.S. workers first.
So they don't even have to look for U.S. workers.
Correct. So the U.S. workers that are local might not have any idea that these opportunities are even available to them.
How many of our politicians are aware of what appears to be at least some level of abuse of this system?
There's very little known about how the B1 visa is used. So I would say there's very little knowledge about it, and there's a real need for transparency. And it's not just the B1 visa. There's lots of different categories. And what you see, the abuse of it is that U.S. employers moving between the different categories to avoid higher paying the visas that are more complicated to get for a workforce. So there's a lot of flexibility in there that could be fraudulent. And it really comes down to the benevolence of the employer. If it's a good employer who's going to follow the rules, it will be fine. But if you have an employer that's looking to cut corners and to save costs, using these non-immigrant visas, especially the non-formal ones, it's an excellent way to do it. And because of the lack of transparency, you're going to probably get away with it.
That was Kathleen Karen, founder and executive director of Justice in Motion. Our months-long investigation traced the flow of foreign labor from Slovenia to South Carolina. But I could not have done it without the tireless work of my producers, Emily Rand and Rainer Ramirez. Emily and Rainer spent months reporting in Europe and here in the United States to show just how easy it is to import this so-called hidden workforce.
There was Polish and Slovenian and Croatian people there.
What do they do?
Anywhere from steel erection to pipe fitting, to pouring concrete, to installing equipment, just about everything.
The cars will be built by American workers. It's just the building of these plants that's being done by foreign workers.
Exactly, yeah. They come in at groundbreaking, they're done at start of production.
Did you think to yourself that the jobs that these guys were doing could be done by Americans?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The story is about workers who are coming over from Eastern Europe to work in auto factories across the country. So they're not the folks who actually build the cars, they're the guys who come in at groundbreaking and they are gone at the start of production. These are jobs no question, that Americans could do. These are welders, these are pipe fitters. I mean, these are normal construction jobs. The initial question that I had was, you know, could we prove that these guys were working here? I decided to just take a look at it for a couple of days, and I quickly realized that there was so much information online that was gonna help us.
What we needed to do was prove that these guys were here under B1, B2 visa, and they were not supervisors, as they said they were. And the Snapchat and the Facebook videos provided confirmation that they were actually doing physical work. You're not allowed to do physical work under the B1, B2 as a supervisor.
That was just endless video from inside the plant while they were working, you know, because they want to sort of show off what they're doing to the folks back home. Not just the photos, but just documents and flight manifests and the actual visas they posted. So at one point I just printed out what I had so far and put it up on the wall so I could sort of visualize, well, where did we have the most photos? Where were the most people working and what were they doing in each of those places? And then I kind of got to a point where I had enough stuff that I wanted to figure out, well, where could we go to actually look and see if these guys were really here.
There are several workers who work at this BMW plant that have gathered up in the parking lot awaiting their ride to the plant.
I spent, you know, literally hours sitting outside of plants waiting for these guys to get out of work so I could get a shot of them coming out and follow them to their house to see where they were living and how many other people were there.
We were observing people and, you know, with cameras from far away, and I felt like we weren't getting, we needed to get interactive with them. And so you just start talking to them in various places, and the weirdest places you can imagine where people would talk to you. Like we watched,
like what?
Like the grocery store,
oh, yeah.
To their apartment complexes.
To their apartment complexes.
There's a scene in the piece in which we drive up to a guy who's walking around in the apartment complex, and we're just, hey, how you doing?
What are you doing here?
Volvo.
Oh, what do you do for Volvo?
Paint shop.
Paint shop?
They were actually really, which I did not expect, but very eager to talk to us because for the most part, they don't really interact with anyone who's actually living in Spartanburg or Charleston. We were hoping to track everything to Slovenia eventually because it turned out that 9 of these companies were all in the same town.
So I'm actually here in Slovenia with my crew, and we spent the last couple of days, we're doing a story on Slovenian and Croatian workers.
We had a few things loosely set up when we went over to Slovenia, but mostly we just hoped that these guys were going to be willing to talk to us and explain to us how the system works, and that was a real gamble. But as soon as I first met Stephen Pappas, I was like, oh, this is going to work.
You can come here every year if
every
you like.
year? Oh, that's
like,
so very kind.
Stephen Pappas worked for a company called ISM Vuzem, and they worked all over the States. And he had some health problems and decided to no longer work for them anymore. And he came to find out that the company had not been paying his taxes in Croatia. The guys who had kind of gotten out of the game were willing to talk to us about this because they also thought that it would help their fellow workers. When we first got to Slovenia, we went a few different places to meet a few different people with Vlad. And we realized, like, the first interview that we did, everyone was kind of like on edge and really uncomfortable. And then someone said, oh, let's have some of this liqueur, like the local liqueur. And they brought it out.
The local liqueur, by the way, is this beautiful bottle of brandy with the whole pear in it.
And they grow the pear in the bottle.
How do you say cheers in Slovenia?
Na zdravie.
Na zdravie.
Na zdravie.
Cheers.
They wanted to be hospitable
Yeah.
to Vlad, and they wanted to welcome him to this country. We'd come all the way from the U.S., and they wanted to welcome him.
We are working so hard, pushing so hard, and they respect us for that, but that's not good for us.
When we talked to guys in Slovenia and in the United States, they all said that if they could make just 15 or 20% more money in Slovenia or Croatia, they would never leave.
Unemployment rate in Slovenia is high, and they just said they needed to make the money. They need to make the money, and they knew that they were grossly underpaid while they were in the US, but they still wanted to make a living.
Everyone's talking about immigration right now, illegal immigration, and you know, the picture that you always see is like people coming in over the wall. What we found working on this story is that the way that people are actually coming in and taking American jobs is a system that our government has set up, and it's been going on for years. And these guys, you know, they aren't coming in over a wall, they're coming in on like Lufthansa, and they're coming and going, and it really is impacting American workers.
BMW, Mercedes, Volvo, Tesla, Volkswagen, and Eisenman declined our request for an interview, but they sent us statements that all said essentially the same thing. Their contractors are legally obligated to comply with all immigration, safety, and employment laws, and any violations are promptly addressed. Eisenman also told us they stopped writing letters to the U.S. consulate on behalf of specific employees' visa requests last summer. Last week, Mercedes said they are investigating our allegations of B-1, B-2 visa abuse and have already banned one subcontractor from the Alabama worksite as a result. As for ISM Vuzem, they told us they were on vacation and will get back to us after the summer. Coming up after the break, Finding Harmony. Love that song, Enter Sandman. A behind-the-scenes look at how one of the highest-grossing bands of all time continues to rule the rock music landscape after nearly 4 decades. After the Assignment with Metallica is next. Stay with us. Who would have thought some 3 decades ago that this group of ambitious 20-somethings would become the kings of heavy metal? Over the past 35 years, Metallica has lost members and gained some new ones, and it is no secret they've suffered some serious infighting. At one point, the band was so dysfunctional, it made a documentary chronicling the most turbulent years.
This is so silly. You're just sitting there going, I'm in a really pissy mood, and I told you straight up that I was. Right. And what are you trying to do? I'm not trying to do You're just sitting there being a complete You're really helping matters. You're really good at that. I was straight up with you and I told you I'm in a mood, and what have you been doing? Picking at me all night.
Come on, guys. We got better things to do. Right?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Awkward. Well, through it all, though, Metallica has managed to maintain its status as hard rock royalty. Now in their 50s, James Hetfield, Lars Ulrich, Kirk Hammett, and Robert Trujillo are back on tour for their new album, Hardwired to Self-Destruct. It is the band's 10th album and the first new record in 8 years. But no matter how much time passes, their hard metal music and stadium spectacles are still captivating fans around the world.
Sometimes I see people that are just completely, jaw open, just like, I can't believe this, or I hope that's what they're thinking, not, oh God, they suck, Either that or just complete, all senses firing, like craziness going on.
Everything's bigger. Bigger stage, bigger PA, bigger lighting show, pyro, whatever. Kind of have to live up to all the stuff that's going on around you, so you have to kind of exaggerate a bit.
Metallica Groove, it sounds like a gorilla that is kind of cruising through the jungle. It's just got the power, but it's also got the consistency, and it'll hurt you if it steps on you.
We never play the same set list twice. So I get all the statistics of every time we played in Detroit, basically in the last probably 10, 15 years. I get all the set lists, and I get these grids with all the song titles and little X's. If we're doing like a double, play 2 shows in a row in the same city, I'll really vary it from the night before.
For me, you know, when I go out on stage and I start playing, I get so just wrapped up in what I'm playing and how I'm playing it and the execution of it that oftentimes I forget there's an audience out there. But instantly I'm snapped back and I'm aware of the audience again.
I see fathers and daughters, I see mothers and sons, I see grandparents and grandkids, I see it all. And it's just, it's connecting, it's bonding, it's a lot of fun. First, you know, 60,000 people to be singing along with what craziness was in my head, it's very connecting. And I can't explain it. It's a feeling of belonging, it's a feeling of purpose, it's a feeling of connection.
It's pretty crazy when you think about it at that level where you kind of pause long enough to kind of go, we wrote that song, we put this together in a studio a year ago, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, and there's all these people sharing this experience. I guess when you've been doing it for the past 35 years, this is what we do.
35 years and still rocking it. 31 years ago, I got hooked on Metallica when I bought that album, Master of Puppets. I was a junior in high school. It is still on heavy rotation on my iPod. Well, next week, after The Assignment, Guns of Chicago. Adriana Diaz takes us to the streets of one of the deadliest cities in America.
I'm from Chicago. I'm 27 years old. And I've been to 10+ funerals. And this is Mac right here, man. That's 50 shots, man.
2 people were shot just in the alley back there. One of them in the head, and we saw police cover his body with a blanket.
This is how Chicago works. Number 1 human instinct is self-preservation. We just trying to keep ourselves protected.
Your boyfriend got killed. 2 of my kids' fathers. Look, you can see the bullet holes.
America messed up, and I'm not looking to America to help me.
You're not going to want to miss Adriana's report. That does it for the first episode of After the Assignment. You can see more original video and interviews related to tonight's stories at cbsnews.com. And you can catch CBSN on the CBS News mobile apps for the Android, iOS, and Windows. CBSN is also available on connected TV devices and gaming consoles listed right there on your screen. The day's top news stories are coming up on the other side of this break. You're streaming CBSN.